I'm really proud to stand in this House today for what is a historic moment. But it is important, I think, when we stand in these moments in time to remember the reason why we are here today debating this issue in the first place. We're here because our world is warming. Undeniably, it is warming. And I'm proud, at least, that 10 years on from when I first sat right over there, we're no longer having the debate over whether or not that is the case. We're merely debating what it is we do about it. Because undeniably, our sea levels are rising. Undeniably, we are experiencing extreme weather events, increasingly so. Undeniably, the science tells us the impact that there will be on flora and fauna, and yes, also the spread of diseases in areas where we previously haven't seen them. We know as well, Madam Speaker, that some island nations will have their clean water sources impacted by rising sea level and salt water entering into them. On a daily basis, they are already seeing those impacts. Our world is warming. And so therefore, the question for all of us is, what side of history will we choose to sit on in that moment in time? I absolutely believe and continue to stand by the statement that climate change is the biggest challenge of our time. And for us here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that means for this generation, this is our nuclear moment. And so today, if we're to truly reflect that that is what this means for us, we have to start moving beyond targets. We have to start moving beyond aspiration. We have to start moving beyond statements of hope and deliver signs of action. And that is what this government is doing, and proudly so. We have committed ourselves to a 1.5 degree target that we are embedding in legislation, not just because of the statements of the Paris Agreement, but because that is what is required if we are to show our Pacific neighbours that we understand the impacts above 1.5 degrees will have on them. It is real. And today we embed in legislation a climate commission who will play a role in helping us to establish carbon budgets, who will help us establish the targets that we need across the spectrum, that will provide for us advice, particularly on how we deal with issues like methane. I want to reflect on the last member's speech, because there was some discussion of the SOPs that were put before Parliament last night. This government did not vote for them, because in essence, a large majority of them were covered in the legislation itself. The claim that we should listen to the Climate Commission is already embedded in the legislation. They are able to give this government their advice on targets, and that includes the methane target, based on scientific evidence, based on what they believe is necessary to provide for us the government of the day. There is no constraint on that. They can do that within the parameters of both the range that we set, but they can equally set outside that range as well. We have given the Climate Commission the ability to advise based on science, and we stand by that. We have in the meantime also tried to give as much certainty as that science develops as we can to the primary sector. We've said in the near term, let's aim for that 10% reduction. And that is, Mr. Speaker, I think that near-term certainty that's required. We also have the ability for the Minister to ask for the Climate Commission to report earlier if required. So that power already exists. Mr. Speaker, we didn't vote on those SOPs because we believe that we have catered for them in this legislation, that this legislation has been well thought through, well debated, and at the same time has tried to build consensus.
Great point.
Now, the Speaker opposite also, though, made one point that I have to say I beg to differ on. And that is the claim that we should factor in what the rest of the world is doing and base our judgment on whether or not we should be in closer proximity to what I hate to say, Mr. Speaker, from all of my international engagement, makes me from time to time despair. New Zealand will not be a slow follower. And, Madam Speaker, we will not be a slow follower because, quite frankly, we cannot afford to be, not for the environment, but nor for our food producers. They trade on our brand and our name. They trade on New Zealand being environmentally responsible. We have the potential here to lead the way and to instill a higher value to our products in doing so. We have the ability to be the world's most sustainable food producers and to sell the innovation and technology that comes with developing that much-needed research, development and technology. This government's vision is that we develop the ideas required on behalf of our exporters so we trade on our name, on our brand, on our reputation, on the quality and respect that people have come to know for our products. I will not allow this country to be a fast follower because we damage our country, our environment and our exporters if we allow that to happen. Madam Speaker, a nuclear-free moment needs to be coupled with action. This is the foundation in our zero-carbon bill, but we need to move beyond that. We've already set an aspiration that as a nation we will plant 1 billion trees and 140 million are already in the ground. We have said we must transition our electricity generation and we have a goal of 100% renewable electricity by 2035. Next year, the first green hydrogen plant will be opened in New Zealand. It is an exciting time for energy innovation. We have pledged to stop issuing permits for offshore oil and gas exploration. We've funded the new Energy Research Centre in Taranaki. We are working on making low-emissions vehicles cheaper and making sure that they appeal to buyers so that we start to reduce our transport profile. We're investing in rail, cycling, walking, options that again give people choices to get out of their vehicles. We have historically reached agreement with our primary sector leaders to price agricultural emissions in 2025. And Madam Speaker, that makes us the first in the world to do that. And Madam Speaker, we have done that together. We have built consensus around that plan, and that is something we should all feel proud of. We're continuing to lead in international collaboration, the Global Research Alliance around greenhouse gases. Just a few weeks ago, we invested $100,000 in the Cawthron Institute, who are investigating new technologies like seaweed use to bring down the methane profile of our farmers, with the potential for that to reduce methane by 80%. Madam Speaker, $100 million has gone into the Green Investment Fund to shift private investment towards a zero-carbon economy. Internationally, we continue to fight against fossil fuel subsidies, which have reached $500 billion. We're negotiating a free trade framework to try and remove tariffs on green technology. We've put $300 million into international support to reduce climate change impacts, half of that going into the Pacific. Madam Speaker, we have done more in 24 months than any government in New Zealand has ever done on climate action. But we have not done it alone. There has been 170,000 New Zealanders taking to the street, calling for that action, not for hope, Madam Speaker, but calling for that action around the world. And I am proud at the rate at which New Zealanders took to the street to reinforce what it is we are doing in this House today. I acknowledge Generation Zero. I acknowledge all of the environmental NGOs who have played a part for over a decade in calling for more climate action. I acknowledge our food and fibre sector leaders who are taking historic, bold, courageous steps on behalf of the people they represent. And I acknowledge James Shaw. James has done a huge amount of work to get us here today, and it has come at personal sacrifice. But I know he'll look back on today and realise that he created a legacy that will not be undone. Madam Speaker, when we think about climate change versus the nuclear-free moments, there are some differences, but there are some similarities. And one similarity is that a nuclear-free moment in New Zealand was something that unified us. Thank you, National, for supporting this bill. We have to be unified in the fight against climate change. We have to move together. There will be areas where we don't always agree, and in one area it will probably be pace of change. But we will keep pushing, doing everything we can to bring you with us. But Madam Chair, today we have made a choice that I am proud of, that will leave a legacy, and that I hope means the next generation will see that we in New Zealand were on the right side of history.